All right, so today we are diving deep into love game in Eastern fantasy.
Ooh, interesting.
And you know, this Chinese fantasy drama was originally titled Eternal Night Star River.
Oh, okay.
You've brought some incredible analysis to the table.
Well, thank you.
That goes way beyond the usual review stuff, you know? Like,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about symbolism, character representation, even how it ties into real-world stuff.
That's right.
Are you ready to, like, peel back all the layers of this story and maybe even, like, challenge how we think about stories in general?
Absolutely. This analysis isn't just about what happens on the surface, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about how the author, Fu Zhou, might be, like, weaving his own life into the story.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about gender roles, coping mechanisms.
That's fascinating.
That blurry line between fiction and reality.
Okay, so love game in Eastern fantasy uses that whole transmigration thing, right?
Yeah.
Where a character from our world, like, wakes up in a book.
Right, exactly.
Often is the villain.
Yeah, and that's our protagonist. Yeah, she wakes up as the villain of this fantasy novel.
I love that trope.
It's a good one. Actually, the analysis compares it to another transmigration story called How Dare You?
Oh.
Similar setup, but it really emphasizes what makes love game unique.
I see, I see.
They both use this idea of a system, though.
Okay, so for those who maybe haven't encountered that,
Right.
What's a system in this kind of story?
Think of it like a game.
Okay.
It's like a game element that's like guiding the protagonist.
So, like, you've got your quest list.
Yeah, you've got your quest list for your life.
Go save the kingdom, go fall in love. Like,
Exactly.
okay, cool.
Adds like a really interesting layer.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really wild, okay? The analysis suggests that this whole world, the system especially,
Yeah.
might be a reflection of the author's own mind.
So the story is like a window into...
Window into his psyche, yeah.
That's kind of trippy.
It is. And there are these like really strong examples, like the protagonist's tasks. They seem to be serving the author's desires directly.
So, like, he's using the character to...
No, it's like he's playing out his fantasies.
I gotcha.
Through her.
Okay, so is that where that connection between the in-game world, Demon Catchers, and the novel Eternal Night Star River comes in?
Yes. That connection is super important.
Okay.
Like, we're seeing two layers of his creative process.
Oh, that makes sense.
You have the game world.
Yeah.
It's like raw desires, and then the novel is like the polished version.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
Man, this makes me want to go back and rewatch, like, the first couple of episodes.
You should. And you mentioned the bamboo shoot scene earlier.
I did, yeah.
That's a perfect example
Okay.
of how this analysis digs into these tiny details.
Okay.
Because in that scene,
Yeah.
different characters totally misunderstand what a bamboo shoot is, like even what it's for.
I see.
And it shows like these limitations in the author's view of the world.
So, like, even small things can reveal
Small thing.
like biases or blind spots.
Biases, blind spots.
Oh, wow.
It's like you can only see things from this one perspective.
That's fascinating. Do you think that could, like, apply to other creative stuff too?
Yeah.
Like paintings or music or...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything creative is shaped by the creator.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Now, the analysis also points out
Okay.
this pattern of absent or messed up father figures in love game.
Yeah. You know, now that you mention it, I did notice a lot of the male characters,
Yeah.
like, struggling with their roles,
Exactly.
with responsibility. Is that what the analysis is getting at?
Yes. And it connects it back to Fu Zhou's life.
Wow.
Like the protagonist's in-game dad.
Yeah.
He has the same face as her dead real-world father.
Oh, wow.
And then there's the emperor who's never around.
Right.
The marquis who's like a total mess.
Yeah, yeah.
The manipulative cultivator, Guo Xiu.
It's not just fathers, but, like, men in those mentor roles.
Exactly, yeah. Men in positions of authority failing, yeah.
Is the analysis saying that's intentional on the author's part, or is it like an unconscious bias?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Maybe both. It's really interesting to think about.
Yeah.
And then some characters might actually represent different parts of Fu Zhou himself.
Okay.
Like, think about the author who plagiarizes.
Okay.
The Water Demon King, who's so heartbroken.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or even that grieving innkeeper, the one who lost his wife.
Right, right.
Could all be like reflections of the author.
Oh, so, like, which character is Fu Zhou the most, do you think?
That's tough.
It's a good question.
The Water Demon King, he was so memorable, especially in that inverted reflection scene.
Oh, that scene was visually amazing.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
So striking.
And the analysis sees the Water Demon King as like all this repressed emotion.
So that scene, like, visually represents that.
Yeah, it becomes this powerful metaphor for what's going on inside him.
That's really cool.
He's trapped in this, like, flipped world, can't escape his feelings.
Right.
It's brilliant storytelling.
It is.
Using visuals to show something so complex.
Yeah, and that seems to connect to, like, the bigger theme about women in the story.
You're right. The analysis explores this contrast between women who are strong and find peace without men.
I like that.
Versus women who are stuck in those traditional roles.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Of sacrifice.
Okay.
Like, we have strong women, like Lu Niang, the innkeeper.
Right, creates a safe space for women.
Exactly.
So then there's the protagonist's mom.
Oh, yeah, she's complicated.
Yeah, nurturing, but also kind of destructive.
Right, and then there's the resentful woman.
Oh, yeah. She's both the villain and the protagonist's mom.
Exactly. It adds, like, another layer to that whole mother figure.
Wow. This is getting deep.
Yeah.
It sounds like the author has some pretty complicated views about women.
It seems that way, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of complicated, we have Mu Sheng, the male lead.
Okay, yeah.
The analysis suggests he could be the embodiment of Fu Zhou's desires. And his limitations.
Now, Mu Sheng, he's a half-demon.
Right.
What could that symbolize?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
The analysis proposes that it might mirror Fu Zhou's chronic illness.
Oh, okay.
Specifically Moya Moya disease.
I have heard of that. It affects blood vessels in the brain.
Exactly. And it can lead to isolation.
So Mu Sheng's struggles as a half-demon could be like Fu Zhou struggling with his illness.
That's the idea.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's really insightful.
Now remember that inverted reflection scene?
The one with the water demon king.
Yes.
Oh.
The analysis suggests that when Mu Sheng gets his power back, there's something like unsettling about how he looks.
Oh, interesting.
Like he's uncomfortable with power.
I see.
Yeah, and it could symbolize something uncomfortable about how the author sees himself.
So he's like projecting his discomfort onto
one of the characters.
That's fascinating.
It is, and the analysis also looks at Mu Sheng's relationship. With the protagonist, it goes through all these phases.
Yeah, okay.
Disdain, then hesitant affection.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there's no real romantic, like, consummation.
Oh, that is unusual for this type of drama.
Right.
Yeah, you'd expect a more typical...
You expect a big romantic payoff?
Yeah, so are you saying that the lack of that reflects, like, emotional blocks in the author?
Exactly. It's like Mu Sheng as this embodiment of Fu Zhou can't break free from the author's own limitations.
It's like he's literally trapped in the author's head.
It's like he's trapped in Fu Zhou's imagination.
Wow. That's like really meta.
It is.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about how much of ourselves we put into the stories we tell.
It's a good question.
Right. Even if we're not doing it on purpose.
That's powerful.
It is. And that brings us to some of the bigger, like, meta stuff about the show.
Oh, okay.
Like the titles.
Okay.
Even the production choices.
Yeah, the titles are interesting. Love Game in Eastern fantasy feels so different from Eternal Night Star River.
Totally. The original title sounds so much more...
grand.
Poetic. Yeah, mysterious.
You never thought about how a title could change how I see a story.
It's a key point. The analysis talks about how the different titles can shape what the audience expects.
Right, right.
Eternal Night Star River sounds like this epic thing.
Yeah.
Love Game sounds more romantic.
Yeah, more lighthearted.
Exactly. I mean, he downplays the deeper stuff.
That's fascinating.
It is. And then there's the CGI, which...
Yeah, some of it was a little rough.
A little rough, especially compared to, like, the big budget stuff.
Yeah, was that intentional, do you think?
Ooh, interesting question.
Yeah.
The analysis actually suggests that it might be.
Okay.
It plays into that whole game theme.
Ah, okay, I see.
Like we're seeing this story through a video game lens.
Right, where the graphics aren't always perfect.
Exactly.
That's actually really clever.
Yeah, it adds to that meta-narrative.
Yeah, for sure.
The analysis does critique some production choices, though.
Oh, okay, like what?
Like the wigs.
Okay.
It suggests that practical effects might have been better for some scenes.
Right, to make it feel more real.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, imagine that inverted reflection scene.
Yeah.
But instead of CGI, they actually flipped the actor upside down.
Whoa.
And used, like, wind effects.
That would have been amazing.
Right. So much more impactful.
Yeah.
The analysis argues that those little things can really make or break
immersion. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Little details matter.
For sure.
But let's get back to that core idea about the author's psychology and how it shows up in the story.
Okay.
We're talking about Mu Sheng representing both Fu Zhou's desires and his limitations.
Okay.
The analysis goes even deeper.
Oh, okay.
And suggests that Mu Sheng's inability to, like, fully consummate his relationship with the protagonist is... Wait, so you're saying that the lack of a traditional romance ending reflects the author's own blocks?
Exactly.
That's a bold interpretation.
It is. But it makes sense.
Okay.
It's like Mu Sheng, as Fu Zhou, can't fully embrace love.
Because Fu Zhou can't.
Right. It's like he's stuck within Fu Zhou's imagination.
So the romance, or the lack of it, becomes like...
a meta-commentary on the
author's limitations.
Exactly. And it adds all this complexity to the story.
Wow. Yeah, this is making me think about the story in a whole new way.
I'm glad. It's really fascinating stuff, right?
It is. Yeah, it's like we're getting this glimpse into the author's mind.
Yes. Seeing how his struggles and experiences might have shaped everything.
And it makes you wonder, like, how much of ourselves do we pour into the stories we create?
Even if we don't realize it.
Even if we don't realize it, yeah.
It's a great question to think about.
It is.
And it's one of the reasons why I love analyzing stories.
Me too.
Exploring different interpretations. Because it helps us understand, like, the power of narrative.
Right.
How it can be used to explore these complicated things.
Complicated themes, emotions.
Exactly.
Our own struggles.
Sometimes in ways we're not even aware of.
That's powerful. Makes me think back to, like, what we were saying about the titles.
Oh, yeah.
Eternal Night Star River versus Love Game in Eastern Fantasy.
Right.
They have such different vibes.
They do. The analysis actually points out that the translated English title is even more evocative than the Brazilian Portuguese one.
Oh, interesting.
Which just focuses on the game part.
I see.
The English title keeps that fantasy feel.
Yeah, with Eastern Fantasy.
Exactly. And that might appeal to more people.
That's true. It broadens the audience.
It does.
Ah.
But the different titles definitely change how you approach the story.
So even translation adds layers of interpretation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just about the words.
Yeah.
It's about capturing the tone, the target audience.
That's a good point.
Eternal Night Star River sounds epic.
Yeah.
Love Game sounds more romantic.
Yeah. Right.
And remember that scene where they talk about bamboo shoots?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The analysis uses that to show the author's potential biases.
I remember, yeah, it was such a simple concept.
Right.
But the characters all understood it differently.
And it did.
Which the analysis argues reveals something about the author's worldview.
Exactly. Like he can only see things from one perspective.
It's limiting.
It's limiting, yeah.
And that shapes the whole story.
The whole narrative.
That's a really interesting take.
It is. But it could also just be a funny scene.
Right.
Meant to show off the characters' personalities.
That's true. There could be multiple interpretations.
Exactly. And that's what makes analyzing stories so fun.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle.
It is. We're piecing together clues.
To try and understand the author.
And the deeper meaning.
Yeah. And that's part of the joy of, like, really engaging with the story.
Absolutely. It becomes a conversation between the author, the story, and us, the audience.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a dialogue.
Speaking of dialogue,
yes,
the analysis mentioned a parallel between Love Game and the anime Inuyasha.
Oh, yeah. That was fascinating.
Yeah, both stories have
a strong female lead.
Yeah, a half-demon character.
Companions facing supernatural challenges.
It makes you wonder if Fu Zhou was inspired by Inuyasha.
Right. It's possible.
It really shows how stories can build on each other.
Yeah, across cultures, genres.
Like a web of narratives.
Well, exactly. And for fans of Eternal Love, there's a little Easter egg in Love Game.
The casting.
Yeah, several actors from Eternal Love
show up.
It's a fun little reunion.
It is.
Like a wink to the audience.
Totally. Recognizing that shared history between stories, between actors.
It's those little details that can really enhance the experience.
For sure.
Especially for people who are really into Chinese dramas.
Absolutely. This deep dive has been so eye-opening for me. Me too. I'm already seeing Love Game in Eastern Fantasy in a totally new light.
That's great.
Yeah, like noticing details I missed before.
I love that.
And really thinking about the author's point of view.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And we hope it's been the same for you, our listener.
We want to encourage you to keep exploring the story.
Yeah.
And other stories too.
With a critical and curious eye.
Yeah, look for those hidden layers.
The connections to the author's life.
The ways the story might be reflecting or challenging societal norms.
Because the best stories are the ones that make us think, make us question.
Make us see the world differently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as always, we want to hear from you.
Yes, we do.
What resonated with you the most during this deep dive?
What new insights did you gain about Love Game?
Share your interpretations, your questions.
Your own connections to this story.
Because every deep dive is a journey.
Yeah.
And we're all in this together.
So until next time, happy watching.